You're listening to the Changing Safety Podcast with Paul Clark.
Welcome everybody. This is Paul Clark, the owner and director of HSE Global Series, and you're listening to the Changing Safety Podcast. So this is a bi-weekly podcast dedicated to challenging the safety narrative by championing different ideas and selling different as a movement to bring innovation and real change to the profession. Let's think outside the box together and have the confidence to do things differently. So after our fantastic first edition last week with James Pomeroy, I'm delighted to bring Louise Chandler to the table as we talk about positive disruption, the importance of the future of the profession, collaboration, diversity, and breaking the patterns of doing the same thing over and over again. Hi Marie, how are you?
Hi Paul, I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. Thank you ever so much for joining the Changing Safety Podcast today. It's great to have you. Just for the listeners' benefit, I've known Marie for a number of years now, and had the absolute pleasure of having Marie involved as a speaker, as an advisory council member at HSE UK and HSE Europe events. And we've built a fantastic relationship over the years, and it's been a real pleasure and honour to see the wonderful work that she's been doing within organisations. And we do look to Marie for guidance as an advisory for the fantastic work that she does, and the deep sense of respect and passion that she has within the profession. So it's a pleasure to have you on today. So we're just first of all, I guess for the listeners' benefit, those who don't know you, maybe talk to us a little bit about yourself, your background, and we'll go from there.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. So believe it or not, my background is actually quality. That's where I started. And I was sort of thrown into safety because there was some problems needed fixing. There was some issues that needed addressing. So I got asked to go into safety and take a look, and I got hooked. And that was 19 years ago. And so it all started from there, really. So I've worked in lots of different industries, construction, renewables, so wind farms, aviation, maritime, defence, a lot of male-dominated industries as well, which has a different connotation to the profession of safety. So I thoroughly enjoy it. It was not a career I intended to go down, but since I found it, I absolutely love it. And I think for me, the big part is it's the people part. It's the engagement that you can get with people. It's the difference that you can make, and just hearing people's stories. I love a good story about what's happened and how someone's made something better, or they've learned from something. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, we're all humans. We make mistakes. As long as we learn from them, then that's where we get the good and positive coming out of it.
Yeah, it's funny though. I've done a number of these now in the past 2 weeks. I think you're the third person to say that they've fallen into the safety role, which, it's pretty cool. And everybody that seems to get a taste for it seems to stick with it. And you know what? I guess from an underlying, you kind of covered it, but what is it about safety that attracts you the most? What is it that about safety? Is it, you said it's the people, what's your kind of objective with your career?
My value all the way through has always been to make a difference, and you can really do that in safety. Whether that's in the wellbeing arena, safety, health, environment, the actions that you take are visible. You can actually see the difference that it makes. You can see the improvements. It's tangible. Yes, it's the people side, because at the end of the day, we do want everyone to go home safely. I know that's a strap line that everybody uses, but it's crucial. And I think as we move forward and we're seeing more and more, that the physical and the psychological safety coming in, thinking about both the body and the mind, more and more companies are taking that on board now. And it's not just about, bad backs from manual handling or, your occupational diseases. We are now talking more openly about mental health, about stress, and all those sorts of hazard that we get in the workplace, because it's constantly evolving, isn't it? Our workplaces are completely different to how they were 20, 30 years ago. And if you think 2024, it's 50 years since the Health and Safety at Work Act was put out there, and how things have changed since then.
Yeah, I mean, and that leads on to, I mean, the point of changing safety again. Like I talked about this with Carla, that Carla Davis Magic yesterday. That people look at changing as a negative, right? As we need to change everything, and changing doesn't necessarily mean reinventing. It's actually just building upon, and we have come. We have come a long way. But would you agree that current situation at the moment, certainly is there seems like there's a sense of disjoint and maybe a sense of that we're a little bit stuck. So do you think that well, let me ask you this, what do you think needs to maybe change to kind of push things forward a little bit more, to start taking that next step as a profession?
So I think there's two things really. One is about behaviours and leadership, and one is about the skill sets. So if we look at leadership and behaviours, you think back, 20, 30 years ago, safety was seen as, that person in the high vis that came around with the clipboard and told you were doing something wrong, or threw the rule book at you, and just quoted, clauses all the time. And that's not where we are now. We've moved on to this engaging, building relationships, having conversations with people, and getting them involved with what's going on. So the ownership of safety is not with the safety professional anymore. It's with the organisation, with its employees, with its leadership team. And I think on the leadership side, there are more and more execs and boards that are taking safety seriously, in terms of, not saying they didn't before, but in terms of sort of like the mental health side of things, the well-being side of things, and really looking at how we can make the workplace better. And if you think, I personally believe that one of the enablers that has really helped us to change is COVID. So if there was a silver lining, it's put the safety profession in a very different position, and the role it plays in keeping people safe and well, and then also more recently the inclusion of safe and healthy working places in the ILO's fundamental principles. That's been a big change as well. So those things are sort of helping the profession, if you like, change and move in the right direction. But what we've got to do is change the skill sets that we look for, because if you look at where we were years gone by, you're looking for someone maybe auditing or attention to detail, someone that could translate legislation into instructions or procedures or processes, what it may be. And now we need more influencing, negotiating skills. We need people to be able to have those conversations. So the skill set has changed, and we need a broader set of skills, because what we're seeing is things like well-being, risk, security coming into the safety profession. So that's the broader span of safety is getting bigger.
Yeah. It's becoming as well, and this is kind of one of the step changes to where global series are challenging the normality with an EHS, an event, or, a platform, a vehicle. I don't like the term conference or trade show, because that's not what we are. But we're trying to see more wider job functions become involved in that operational risk conversation. And I find that really interesting. We're starting to, I agree with you. I think there is an element of raising the attention that health and safety is, not a function that just sits directly with, people like yourself. It's a leadership, it's an organizational challenge, and it's an organizational responsibility. And I think there is a shift happening, I must say. It's interesting that you were saying about changing the skill sets as well. I had a very interesting conversation with a gentleman that he was ex-head of health and safety for a large train company, and he was saying that they were moving, they move, X amount of people around daily within the trains, right? And they wanted to know how they can do it better because they were having high incidents and accidents. And so he said, well, the best place to look and the best person or company to go and speak to was a large London airport. And so they did, and they went in, they learnt from them, and they were able to reduce their incidents by 25%. So that kind of outside of industry. Well, there's the outside of industry look, which is something again that I'm trying to champion, but it's also that collaboration between the profession that needs to be. I get frustrated because of this siloing and this kind of this chambering of certain subject matter expertises and creating this divide, which really frustrates me as an outsider. But it is a matter of collaboration, isn't it? It's a great opportunity for us.
I think safety is the one topic where companies, individuals, networks can get together and leave the identity of who you work for and who you are at the door, all the commercial and financial elements, and just come together to talk about people and, the way that we treat them, the way that, we set up their working environments. There's nothing commercially sensitive about that. It should be working for the greater good. And that's one of the things I like about the HSE Global series, and the way that it's different is, you have got those thought leaders in there. You are provoking a discussion, and the ability to be able to learn from each other, which is brilliant. It's a great format that you've got. But I'd tell you something that I've seen through my career. As I said, I've worked in a lot of male-dominated industries. I've been head of teams that have been all male. Looking at maybe a 20-80 split in terms of females to males across the whole organisation. Yeah. And what I'm still seeing now that I'm really disappointed about is the sort of misogynistic behaviours that are out there. Yeah. And the fact that you're a female coming in to an organisation, and perhaps a senior female as well. There are still some people out there that think that's not the world for females. And I'm not going to hide it. I am a site girl, and you can take the girl off the site, but you can't take the site out of the girl. So I like getting my boots on and getting out there and having a look at what's going on. And I think that's still a small part of the world out there that does need to change.
And I mean this. Look, I'm male, right? And I've done a lot of work on myself, especially since I got into recovery 4 years ago. Because I wasn't a nice person, right? And my biggest thing as a spiritual man as well as a religious man was actually breaking the ego down, right? And I did a lot of studies actually on the kind of unconscious biases at play around men and women. Do men or women have bigger egos? And I mean this with all due respect. I see a lot, and this is in every industry. I've worked at CXO, CIO, CTO, oil and gas. It's everywhere. In the music industry, it's does safety have? Is there an element of big safety ego that's maybe holding back innovation for us to be more creative? And do men see themselves as jocular competitors, although their competitive interactions are more of an obvious? And with it being a male-dominated industry, is that holding us back? I get the feeling if we were really to strip things back and cut out the BS, and I know when I stripped my ego back, I was a much more open, humble person to learning new things. And if we all kind of had a sense of that, perhaps we'd be able to do a little bit more. It's like when we say looking outside of industry, I've seen a few people, we've had a lot of buy-in on this because we're doing things very differently to a lot of the traditional events. But I see people's backs kind of go, oh, no, 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 that's not how we do things. That's, and that's a shame. And it is a shame. Do you know what I mean?
And it wasn't that many years ago, that I walked onto a site and got told by the site manager that the kitchen was that way, because they thought I was the cleaner. And
Oh
you know,
my God. I mean, I'm not laughing. I'm shocked.
um,
I'm shocked about that. That's
it's
horrendous.
so there are those sorts of behaviours that are still out there, and that doesn't create a safe place for people to feel that they can be open and honest and raise concerns and things like that. But I think it's down to us to call it out, to be honest with you, and to raise it, because personally, I want more females in this profession. I want to see more females coming in, and I want to see them in senior leadership positions. Um, and there are certain industries where that's going to be very difficult for them to do.
Mm,
Um, and you said earlier on about me, quite a few people, me included, that you've said have fallen into safety.
mm,
Um, I want to see more apprentices coming in. I
mm.
want to see, because you go to the careers at school. Were you ever told about a health and safety job and the transferable skills it can give you, and how much of the world you could see if you had a safety job? I've been very lucky and travelled a lot with my jobs, and it's been fascinating. But they don't tell you that at school. So if I can see more apprentices coming in, so we can grow our own, we can teach them the skills and the quality, and the skills and the knowledge that they need to be able to go on and do those things, and to see more females coming into the profession as well.
Mm.
I'm a real advocate for both of those.
Yeah. Do you think millennials, do you think because it is quite, and again, I mean it with complete respect. It's always been traditionally quite an aged industry, EHS. We are starting to see an influx of, I see it all the time online. And, it's funny, you look at the job titles, and I was reading a post by Sarah Brummett, who's one of our keynotes actually for Global Series. She's incredible leadership sales trainer. She's just fantastic. And she was just writing something around job titles. Do not make good leaders, right? Is it in?
Mm.
I look at a job title and I see EHS advisor, and I have to really go. In my immediate thought is, hang on a second. Would that be somebody I'd look at for the podcast? And my immediate reaction is, oh well, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the
Yeah.
experience, and I mean that respectively. That's not right. So I have to go, hang on a minute. They probably got something good to say. So we've actually been making contact with a few of these people to get them on. Let's hear what you have to say. What do you think about the profession? What do you think needs to change? And do you think the millennials of the profession are given the opportunity to have a voice?
Yes, and I think they come with a very different view as well. Especially when it comes to working environments and what they expect. When you see them coming through now, they expect to see well-being, and I don't just mean a basket of fruit and some yoga lessons. They they want to see that companies are investing in safety and their well-being, and that they can enjoy their time at work. Gone are the days where you have a career for life. That's not there anymore. So you want people to enjoy and remember the time that they're with you. You're going to only have them for 4 or 5 years, maybe. They're going to gather their skills and experience. They're going to move on to something else. That's the way careers are going now. But you want the job they have with you to stick out, and they go, I remember that job, and I remember what I learned from that job, and that really set me up. So I think we do need some new, young, fresh blood into the profession. We need them to learn from the people that are there, because EHS advisors who probably have spent years in the industry, they are a fountain of knowledge. They know what's happened in the past. They've seen things happen. They can predict what's happening in the future. We need to keep that knowledge and grow with it, but we need the fresh set of eyes on how we can be better.
Good. So what? Why does obviously there's a little bit of staticness in terms of learning and development. There's a lot of recycling. It seems like the wheels were cycling a lot of the same conversation. Again, a conversation that I had for the podcast was around. It was Carla said about the about Freddy Krueger, the Nightmare on Elm Street films, where they leave a car, they walk past a car, they're trying to get away from Freddy, and they end up back at the car. Right, so they're just going around in circles. There's quite a strong element of that in the safety profession. Do you think we need to think outside the box? And if so, how do we think outside of the box?
It's a good question. The world as we know it is constantly evolving, isn't it? You look at what's happening out in the world, with the economy, politics, you name it. If we don't, as safety professionals, keep up with our development and those emerging risks, we're going to go stale. And I think by having these sort of open, honest, true discussions, we can really make a change. And yes, I think safety needs to think out the box a little bit. I think it needs to look at where and who it can collaborate. Do you ever hear safety and finance in the same question? Usually about, capping your spending. But how do we get that safety knowledge into other areas of businesses so that they're thinking safety when they make decisions? And that it's not just left to one department or one silo, as you said earlier on. So I think we do need to think differently. I think we do need to, come away from rule books and a bit of a draconian sort of way of working, and really get into a more positive role. And I think that's going to come with building those relationships, building partnerships, and for the safety profession to really start saying what it needs. As you may know, I'm a council member with IOSH, and I'm sitting on their Futures of the Profession steering group, and we're having these conversations around, what do we need to do? How can we safeguard the profession coming up? How can we, change the view that people might have on health and safety? We've all had the connotations at Christmas with health and safety, and safety's gone mad and all this sort of thing. How do we get rid of all that and actually tell people what it's about? It's about keeping you safe. It's about making sure the work environment that you are in is not going to harm you. It's as simple and as fundamental as that. So I'm really looking forward to doing some work with this steering group, and really looking at how we can push that future for the profession further along the line.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I've made it quite clear on LinkedIn over the past few weeks that I'm really not a fan of the kind of label, the branding of the way of kind of labeling safety in all these different little kind of, it really is above the shoulders, really irritates me, because it just creates trends and can be in quite a negative way. But saying that, well, coming back to your point on the rule book, I mean, I find that really interesting. And I think it is a little bit about, I'll give you an example. We're doing a lot of work with a guy called Sam Conniff. I don't know if you know him. The book Be More Pirate, and I think at the last page on it was Steve Jobs saying, I'd rather be a pirate. I find if that is pushing yourself just out of the normality a little bit, just looking out just above the usual trends and ways of work, and that surely is a big wide world out there of fantastic intellect, academics, education, and learning, and there's people that are doing things in different industries and professions and job functions that I don't even think we've scratched the surface to what we can achieve. And that's where, and one of my favorite sayings is, if we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change.
Yeah,
And that's what I try to do. If I ever get stuck, I take a step back and I just look at it differently. And I usually come up with a completely new solution, which is sometimes the right, might not lead to the immediate solution, but it'll certainly take me on a journey of finding new ways of doing things. And I think that's where we need to go, right?
definitely. And I think, conversations like this where we can be honest and we can strip it back and really talk about the issues that we face, it's going to help.
Yeah. With the, I mean, it was sort of flying through these, to be honest. I mean, it's good. I think there's loads of really good stuff in here that I think the listeners and the viewers on YouTube can take away. Why does EHS maybe have to think differently? And I know all these questions are kind of relative, but I'm just still trying to dig a little bit deeper. Why do we need to think differently and act differently?
You think about it, EHS, you're putting that into a silo itself. You're talking about environment, health, and safety. When we've already spoke about that, it can be much more than that. But you're going to have a job title that says environment, health, safety, well-being, risk, security. It's all encompassing. So, is safety the right word to use?
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Let's ask the question. Is it? Should it be something else? And that's the sort of out of the box thinking that I want to try and encourage, because there's lots of things it encompasses. It encompasses governance and compliance and leadership behaviours and all those types of things, as well as the topics we've discussed. So does safety really sum that up?
No, and you know what? Funny thing is, I'm having conversations at the moment with my teams about rebranding HSE Global Series because I don't think HSE is suitable. I agree with you. I'm trying to come up with a new name for the events business because I don't think HSE sums it all up for me. I had a really detailed conversation with Ruth Denyer at Netflix about this. It was like, is it operational risk? Is that it? But then, with the responsibility of operational risk this is where I want to see a step change in operations leaders, COOs, CEOs. I think there's now's the time, right? Like, if we really want to see meaningful change, there are a lot of good organizations that get fantastic backing from their board. There are, and I appreciate that. And I'm never going to go and ask people individually the question, do you get support? Because I don't think that's fair. But I think there's an element of, I've seen somebody talking about it's okay to make a profit. It's not against the rules. We're not in this. We're not in work for love only. Yes, we need to make a living. So I get it. But that balance of profit over people, I think you can still make good profits, but still put safety, culture, EHS, risk, whatever it is, you can still get that balance right. And that is the sign of a good organization, no?
I mean, for me, you talked about culture there. There should only be one culture in a company. I don't need a safety culture or a risk culture or a business culture. I need one culture, and that's how the business acts and behaves. And yet we still talk about, we must have a good positive safety culture. What does that mean? How does that differ from your business? Are you saying that only, through safety you can protect your people and keep them from harm? What about, when you make organizational changes, or when you make a decision for a short deadline on a project, and you're going to put staff under pressure to deliver it? Does that not come into it as well?
I agree with you, and I've actually brought this up that again. I said this on every podcast. I'm a consumer of what you guys talk about, right? So I say I'm a forklift driver, and you come up to me and start spinning some big words around hop and all this kind of jazz. I'm like, what? I'm looking at you like you got six heads, right? Safety culture, like what? I've been doing this a decade now, and I said this to a gentleman this morning, right? If I've got I had a piece of paper. It was one of my daughters. She's got a little nurse's uniform, and it says patient on it. And I said, even if I'm not reading the word patient and digesting the word patient, if I look at it enough, at some point I'm going to know what it means, right? Without unconsciously.
Yeah.
The same with all this stuff, right? I've been doing this a decade. I'm not exactly the most intelligent person in the world, but I'm not stupid by any means. But it's that confusing sometimes, because culture to me is just a good culture. But and again, I'm not trying to put anybody out of business, but do we create these things to give ourselves something to sell to organizations? Is that, could that be the possibility that we are, packaging up culture as safety culture, so that we got something to sell to an organization to make some...
I think there are some companies out there that think there's a magic wand that they'll wave it, and all of a sudden the culture of their business will change just by getting somebody in and doing some really good hard talking sessions with them and a bit of coaching, and we'll all be okay. What we actually need to do is disrupt. We need to disrupt more and really poke the bear and get those awkward, difficult questions answered. Because what would happen if you got all the different teams within a business to focus on safety, and there was no safety team anymore?
That's interesting. Yeah, never thought of that before. That's quite scary.
Well, I'm just saying,
might solve it. It might solve it. But it's quite scary.
If you're thinking about, if you want to, do a radical change, then think about the possibilities that are out there. Disrupt the way that we work, and think about different options.
Yeah. People are a bit fearful of disruption, aren't they? Because there is a fear of loss. Like, let's just take that for a minute, right? There's a fear of not being needed. And I brought this up, but again, sometimes I do get the feeling that we create things so that we feel like we have a purpose. I see some stuff. Again, I'm not going to mention any names, although this is a really honest podcast. And I'm not saying it to degrade anything anybody's doing. I just think sometimes we go a long way. We turn a real simple issue into a huge complex challenge or problem. And I had this issue again. I had this conversation with Carla, but sometimes we take a simple solution to a complex problem. But there is a lot of this, taking something really, really simple and glossing it up, rewording it, packaging it all up and going, and I just find it grossly confusing. But is there an element in the profession that people are a bit scared to disrupt?
I think that's one of the things we can change, because I think you can disrupt positively. The way that you question, the way that you're curious, the way that you delve in and get those answers can be positive. Disrupting doesn't always mean a change. It just means you're getting people to think. You're just getting people to a situation that they might not have thought before. It might work, it might not work, but let's have that discussion. So I think, if we can do one thing is make disrupting positive, and it's not challenging. It's different to that. We can all challenge positively, but we need to disrupt. We need to kick the apple cart over every now and then and just see if the apples can go back in a different way, and what that looks like, and not be afraid of what the consequences might be.
Love it. I don't think I've got any more questions here. I think that, to tie up, the whole point of this, I'm just coming at this from I'm trying to get people curious, right? I'm not trying to offend. I'm not trying to it's one of those things that there's an element of inclusiveness. We're all human beings. We're all professionals, and we all want the same thing. Look, for me, I said this to Katie, with Global Series, we're a modest company. We're a small company that do big things. My whole objective of this whole events organization from nearly 10 years ago was we wanted to provide events that would disrupt the events industry, disrupt people's thinking, create a new way in which people can collaborate, thought lead, educate one another. And we've gone on that journey. And for me, the endpoint result is, in 15, 20 years time, I want to leave a legacy when I retire that the HSE Global Series was able to provide a meaningful project and product that helped people give you the tools to reduce incidents, save lives, and make the world a better, safer place. That's it. Everything else is not important. Of course, we got to keep a roof over our heads, but apart from that, that is our objective. Otherwise, we go and do something else. If we were to fast forward, one day you're gonna retire on a beach somewhere, yeah, and just chill and look back and think, wow, if you were to put yourself on that beach and you were to look back and say, one thing that you were able to have left as a legacy for yourself and your role in this profession, what would that look like?
Cool, you're asking all the tough questions today, aren't you? I think I would want more people to have the courage to speak up and speak honestly about what they want, what they need, and I'm talking about this in the well-being and the mental health space. If we can do that a little bit more, I think we'll be able to have some much richer and deeper conversations.
I love that. On that absolutely fantastic note, I think we will leave it there. Marie, it's been a pleasure. I thank you for everything you do to contribute to the world of safety, if we can call it safety. That'd be.
We'll see what we come up with. We'll put a poll out there for a new name for safety.
I like it though. It's just coming up with it, and there's me saying let's stop rebranding stuff. But I get it. I totally get it. But it's been a pleasure having you. I'm looking forward to you attending the UK event. I think this year.
I am. Yes. Yeah.
What are you looking forward to the most?
Who am I looking forward to?
Yeah. What are you looking forward to with the event the most?
I think the speakers that you've got are first class this year, so I'm really looking forward to listening to them. I've just got to decide who I'm going to bring with me. Yeah,
there you go. And that's that event as well. Is just for the listeners, it's HSE UK Congress is in June. We've got 8 events all over the world this year. We are really trying to do, the point of changing safety is we're trying to do things differently, but we're not trying to go completely outside the box that it's not relevant, but we lean on these amazing people that have built relationships with us over the years, so everything is tailored towards their needs, their wants, their whys. So if you are listening to the podcast, you're interested in what we're doing, give us a shout. globalseries.com. You can register for the events and buy tickets online, etc. So that's my little plug, shameless plug. Thank you very much, Marie, for your time.
And thank you for inviting me. It's been a great session.
Welcome. I'll see you in Kenilworth in June.
Excellent. Thank you.